fraud now costs more than the global drug trade.
It does indeed.
You hunt the bad guys.
The UK is a big hotspot.
This is a big problem, clearly.
You've got 500,000 that is gone very, very quickly.
Okay, is it coming back?
So that's the interesting question. I am Jessica Cath, and I head up the financial crime team at Thistle Initiatives. And we help banks, fintechs, crypto firms to prevent financial crime. Young people don't often realise that you're doing something illegal.
That's really scary. How should we visualize what's going on?
Visualising a scammer is very difficult because they could be anyone. Phone calls you will not get anymore.
What are push payments?
This is very difficult for banks to spot.
What's the most convincing deepfake?
At the moment, the most convincing deepfakes have 40% of our crime is fraud.
40%.
The frameworks the government have set don't quite work.
That's not good enough.
We need more investment into policing.
They've not put the mechanisms in place to protect people. Why haven't they?
They haven't put it in place because they don't need to.
Top 3 red flags for scamming, what would they be?
The top 3...
Jessica, welcome to the podcast. So basically, you hunt the bad guys.
I try my best.
You hunt all of those guys that are phoning us, trying to steal money off our elderly parents, off our teenagers, and off us. That's really what you do? You're going after them?
It is indeed. We work with lots of the financial services firms to build the structures that really get to the heart of trying to stop money laundering, fraud, all of the different types of financial crime that we actually face on the ground.
Okay. This is a big problem. Clearly, we're all of us have experienced at some point someone trying to steal money off us or people that we love and know. In terms of countries that are most affected, which would those be?
The UK is a big hotspot. So if we're talking about fraud, we really are a kind of scam target for the world. I mean, even one member of my own team got scammed the other day. So even when you're in the anti-financial crime space, it can be really easy to fall foul to scams. We have in the UK some real challenges for multiple different reasons. We have really good fast payments through some of our fintech players, which are great. And we love tapping for instant payments. But it does mean that we are quite exposed to fraud. And of course, a lot of that money then goes overseas. But in terms of the UK, we then house a lot of the victims when it comes to fraud.
Okay, so this is horrible. I don't like this because I live in the UK. Okay, so the UK is a hotspot. What about America?
America is not so bad because they've got different types of payment flows. So coming back to this point around the UK really being a hub for faster payments, of course, Europe has faster payment flows as well, but we really do have some exciting developments in terms of payments players, which enable payments to move very, very fast. We also have a really good kind of crypto network as well, which again is a bit of a hub when it comes to moving fraudulent funds. Crypto, of course, in the US is becoming more prevalent, but until this point, the regulatory frameworks have been tricky in the US. So the UK really is a bit of a hotspot when it comes to fraud.
Okay, that's very disappointing to
It
hear.
is.
I'm disappointed. But in terms of the cost, so I don't know if this is correct, so correct me if I'm wrong, that fraud now costs more than the global drug trade. Literally more than the global drug trade.
It does indeed.
It does.
And when we
I can't believe that.
It's almost impossible to think about it. Because when we think about crime, we think about drugs, and that's when we think about money laundering. We think about organised crime, but actually fraud is something that impacts people on the ground in the day-to-day. Another statistic that's really interesting is that over 40% of all the crime in the UK, no matter what crime, is fraud.
It's actual fraud.
And do we think that the police are spending 40% of their money trying to prevent fraud? No. They're still focused on other things, knife crime, etc., which of course is horrible. But fraud is really, really impacting a lot of people on the ground. Like you said, most people know someone that has been impacted by fraud.
100%. So what's the most audacious scam you've seen thus far?
So we've seen a couple of interesting ones. One that was a recent scam that actually happened to a client of ours was an absolute classic. And this was a corporate entity receiving a phishing email that says, "I am your law firm." And they were actually buying new office premises. "Can you send me the deposit for your new premises?" And I think it was around 500,000 or something like that. And the executive assistant thought, absolutely, this looks like an email coming from my boss. I'm going to make that payment as quick as possible so that we don't lose out on the purchase. And there we go. You've got 500,000 that is gone very, very quickly.
Okay, is it coming back?
So that's the interesting question. Once the money has gone, it can be very, very difficult to get that money back. We have been helping them because we do have obviously lots of connections and ways in which we can try and get money back and work with banks and different teams in order to try and expedite the process of getting that money back. But if it has already gone overseas or it's gone into crypto accounts, it's highly unlikely that you're going to get that money back. And especially that amount is very, very difficult to get back. When we're talking about normal customer, so individual scams that are lower amounts than, say, the 500,000, you are likely to get that back depending on the scam based on the reimbursement models. But for this customer, it's a lot of money. That is pretty much gone. Although we have managed to get some of it back, I think about half.
But I mean, that can floor a business. It can definitely destroy your a person, an individual. That's all your life savings, gone. I mean, prevention is for sure better than cure.
And that's a classic scam for people. So people in vulnerable life situations, if you are making a house purchase, that is all your savings usually that you're putting into that transaction.
So if you are making a house purchase, you're in a vulnerable position for attack from these very intelligent fraudsters.
Absolutely.
That are seeking you in a vulnerable financial state. And that's how we have to see it now. Can you just explain what a phishing email, that's how you say it, is for anyone that doesn't actually understand? We have a lot of elderly people watching too that just wouldn't know what that means. How do you identify one?
Yes, it's phishing with a PH instead of an F. So a phishing email is basically a social engineering craft where somebody has crafted that email to look like it's coming from a legitimate source. So in this case, it was crafted to look like it was coming from the law firm to the CEO and then to the CEO to the executive assistant. So it looked like a full trail of emails that it looked legitimate. It had the law firm's signature at the bottom of the email. It had the CEO's signature, and all of these different phishing emails or messages can be crafted quite closely and can be very difficult to spot, particularly when they're using things like AI to help craft and shape the messages in these emails.
Wow, they're using AI. Okay, so they're getting away with it, clearly. At least even that you got half the money back, the other half they've got away with. Why are they getting away with it?
There are multiple reasons why they're getting away with it. One, there isn't enough resources in policing. So trying to actually get the money back through policing is very, very difficult. Two, it's very difficult for banks, financial institutions to try and track that money because in the world of financial crime prevention that I'm in, transaction monitoring has become a huge, complex thing. So if you are scammed, the bank or whoever you bank with will be monitoring all of your payment flows. And they're doing incredible things to look at changes in behaviors using AI machine learning models to try and assess whether or not this is a bit of a different payment. But that's all very, very hard to spot, depending on the scam. So actually identifying that it's a scam can be very, very hard. So there are just multiple different reasons that this is a very difficult thing to prevent.
Gosh, it's frightening. So who's profiting? Who are these people?
There are multiple different types of scammer. So you might think that it's someone like you or I sat on the end of a phone doing some scams as a bit of a side hustle. And there are some low-level scammers. It's becoming easier through AI to do some low-level scams. But a lot of it is actually connected to large global organized crime, and that makes it really difficult to try and stop. So when we start to peel back the layers of some of these scams, if you take a romance scam, for example, which there was a report that came out only yesterday, and romance scams are on the increase at a large scale in the UK. And a lot of these are produced by scam factories in Southeast Asia, so on the border of Myanmar often. And these are huge scam factories with often people-trafficked people who have been trafficked into these scam factories, often with violence. And they have really clear romance scam scripts and criteria that they must follow. And their job is to have 20, 30 mobile phones and conduct romance scams. So when we try and stop that, that's very hard because it's across global borders.
But just on the romance scams, I mean, I've seen some things in the papers where you see this photo of Brad Pitt, ill in hospital, and then these women, they fall for these pictures. But actually, it looks quite fake. You think, but why did you fall for it? Is that what we're talking about, or is it more elaborate than that? Is that just maybe a low-level one that wasn't that good?
I think that's the wrong way to look at it. We always victimize the victim even more by saying, why did you fall for it? And that's what we shouldn't be doing, because actually it's so easy to fall for these, because often a romance scam, the scammers put the time in and they've actually built up a relationship with that person over, sometimes I've seen 6 months, where they really have built up long-term relationships. And if it's part of organised crime, they can do that because they know if you've got a longer-term relationship, when they ask for a big amount of money, you're very likely to send that across. So even if you haven't met them in person, but you've built a long-term relationship with them over time, you feel like you know that person.
Yeah. It's another level.
It's a complete other level, and we shouldn't be victimizing the victims even more.
So the amount of time that goes into that, and they building that credibility, that's not necessarily what would be reported. But yes, you're emotionally involved then, and you think, but you couldn't possibly be doing anything bad here because we've been speaking for so long. You can understand, yes, when you look at it like that. But still, sometimes you look at that photo and you think, well, that wasn't done as professionally. If you are going to be a scammer, sometimes you look at the photos, to be fair, and you think that is so obviously not done very well. But I suppose what I'm trying to get from you is, do you have levels? So maybe the ones that don't do things well, but then something that's like you're saying, that phishing email where it's super professional and slick and you could hardly tell the difference.
Yeah, there are complete different levels. So the simple ones for me, you quite often get the phishing messages now that are just so obviously the scams from 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of awareness campaigns to show that people should just be aware of text messages that look like a scam. But some scams are very, very hard to spot. So, for example, a scammer might have built a completely identical web page to your bank that looks the same, feels the same, and the only thing that might be different is one character in the URL. Wow. So if you're not looking very closely at the URLs or the website domains, it's very hard to spot unless you know what you're looking for. And in those cases, obviously, banks are actually at the moment out crawling to see who's creating fake websites of their firms and trying to make sure that customers are aware. But if you're an individual that doesn't know anything about financial crime prevention, you might think you're just logging into your bank.
That's why elderly and teenagers, although the teenagers, they are growing up to be a bit more savvy because they know how much of this is going on. They won't click on things they don't know. And even my teenager, she'll check, she'll take the URL and she'll plug it into ChatGPT and go, valid or not? ? Check.
Great. That's an excellent check. But yes, they are more savvy, but they are as well more at risk of things like money muling.
What's that?
So young people are often at risk of becoming a money mule. A money mule is like a donkey or a mule that's carrying something. And it's basically carrying money from one place to another. So this is where you might have a scammer or another type of financial crime. That's where the money's come in from. And they are asking to use your account to move that to somewhere else. So you might just be part of the transition and carrying that money and moving it from one place to another. And often they target young people because young people are looking for quick ways to make a little bit of extra cash on the side. And it's a really easy thing to do. You say, absolutely, these are my account details, send me the money. Yeah. You often keep a small portion of the fee, and then you just send the money elsewhere. And young people don't often realize that you're doing something illegal, which can ruin your credit rating. If the bank spots it, your accounts will be shut down. I know some young people that have been unable to get mortgages in future because of activities that they've done through money muling when they're younger. They might not think that they're doing something criminal, but being part of that money laundering flow, you are.
Gosh, this is literally... I'm so glad we're talking right now, because I hear, you hear about drug mules and you think, okay, well, that's a terrible thing. You meet the wrong people. You're transporting these drugs across and that's it. Your life's ruined, basically. But this is a money mule thing, more subtle, very dangerous for these teenagers. And they need to know about it. We need to get this out there. This has got to be a short. Come with a warning and say, all teenagers, listen to this. That's really scary. So how will they know that they've been money muled? What are the signs for this, for the teens?
So anyone that's asking you to, can I send you some money if you move it somewhere else? The challenge is often it comes through people that you semi-know. So it might be through a school friend, or it might be from a university friend, or a friend of a friend, and you feel like there's an element of trust there. But that's why they're so at risk. Ultimately, if anyone's asking you, can I just move some money through your account? That is a red flag.
Okay, that's pretty clear. Right. So you said earlier about when we think about the scammers and fraudsters, it's not necessarily this one lonesome person, sitting on the other end of the phone trying to do this little small scam. So how should we think about them? How should we visualize what's going on?
So visualizing a scammer is very difficult because they could be anyone. That's the challenge. And like I said, with the money mule piece, it could be someone within your network. And that's where really good quality scams take place, where there is an element of trust. Or it could be a huge global organized crime gang, potentially with links to national states. There's a lot of big criminal groups behind this. Or it could be someone very small nearby.
Okay, so it could be still the individual and a trusted one, but it could be a massive company, corporate organization, just a crime organization with levels, and I'm assuming management and people that have to report to somebody. And
Exactly. I mean, we have actually seen South Korea advising their students not to take jobs in Southeast Asia because they've fallen into these scam factories and they're lost. They can't get them back. So this is complete human trafficking.
My goodness. Okay, so could you walk me through a typical modern scam and how that works? Just from the lowest level up, so that we can understand a bit better insight into this world.
Yeah. So perhaps if I go back and just take the romance scam, because this is one that perhaps people can relate to. That starts with some form of contact point with an individual, and the relationship is built up over time, usually on the phone, or can be through chat messages, or perhaps it started on a dating site and then they've taken it off onto WhatsApp or something like that. And it really does take a long time. So they build up a relationship, fake personas, fake people, fake backgrounds, fake scripts. Wow. So, for example, one of the scripts might be, after 2 weeks, you must tell them that you love them. After 4 weeks, you must move on to the next stage, or whatever that might be. So it's really, really scripted to get to make the most of emotional manipulation.
How awful.
Absolutely.
How disgusting, really.
And then once they're ready to do the scam, it's then about putting pressure. So it's some form of fast request in a vulnerable situation that relies on pressure. So if you have anything that is a pressure to move money at speed, that is a red flag. So often it will be, I don't know, my mother is in hospital. I need money to pay for her healthcare. Please, can you help me out? I need £10,000. Or they might need just 1,000 to start, and then it increases upwards quite quickly. And all of the scams are around some form of pressure to move money quickly.
It makes me think of my parents, you know, when they sometimes come to me, and my dad will say, oh, I've got an email and there's a potential thing to invest in and this and that. And whenever I hear anyone asking for money ever, I'm like, no.
And that's the way to go. But it's a sad situation where you have to go out not trusting anyone.
Not trusting, that's right.
And questioning before you make any payment.
Yeah, and same with phone calls. They've had phone calls saying, you know, you need to do this, and pressure about money. And, you know, you just think, well, no one would phone you like that about money. So don't take the call, put that down.
Yes, don't take phone calls. So phone calls you will not get anymore. Phone calls will not take place. But if someone does phone you, it's absolutely 100% a scam. So phone calls, no. And if you are receiving a message or an email and you're not sure about it, phone your bank on the number that you know is the bank and ask them and say, I've just received this message. Can you confirm? They will confirm, and then you can do it that way.
You know, there's even weird things going on about podcasts that you'll get in, and I got one from supposedly, and I could tell it was a scam, but from Kirsten Cavallari, who was on the Hills in America, saying, oh yeah, you know, come on my podcast and we'll pay you to come on the podcast and this and that. And it just didn't feel right, and it wasn't.
No.
So I contacted them and I said, just so you're aware, you know, you've got these people, and they're like, oh yeah, we're aware, but thank you for bringing this to our attention.
If it doesn't feel right,
why is that a thing? What are they trying to do?
Well, it will usually be the next stage. So that might be the first trigger point to start building whatever relationship or start the process of the scam. And then they'll lead on to something else. Actually, one other scam type that's really important, particularly for young people to be aware of, are any sorts of scams through phone theft. So I recently went to an event where someone talked us through the process. He'd actually had his phone stolen, and within 15 minutes, he'd lost 40,000.
Oof. Okay.
And that's purely because he had his phone stolen whilst he was walking along the street, and it was open and unlocked.
Yeah.
And that was a small on-street gang, purely for phone thefts. If it's open, they have access to, usually we have all of our banking apps on our phone. And he instantly swept through all the accounts and drained them.
Yep. And you see that a lot in the streets of London today. And I was in London for the weekend, and my daughter got her phone out. I said, put that away right now. We're walking around. And my husband saw someone's phone being snatched right in front of him. And the guy tried to run and catch them, but it didn't work.
It's gone.
It's just happening all the time.
All the time. A couple of things that on the phone theft that you could do proactively. One, just keep it locked and in your bag. Two, when you're tapping on the tube, actually, some people are going back to tapping just with their card, because if you have your card stolen, it's much easier to cancel your card than it is to cancel your phone, which has everything.
True.
So should we be using the phone out when we're tapping on the tube? There are also ways to hide the apps in your phone. So, for example, if you have your HSBC banking app, for example, you can change the icon and you can change the name HSBC to something completely random that you know is your banking app, but someone who might have stolen your phone wouldn't be able to see that icon. So there are some ways and techniques that people are trying to deploy to stop this, but ultimately it's a pretty sad situation to be in, where we're worried about 40,000 instantly leaving our accounts if you have your phone stolen.
Gosh. Okay, a term I've heard, push payments. Mm-hmm. What are push payments?
So authorised push payments, or APP fraud, is a particular type of fraud. This is very difficult for banks to spot, because this is where you or I actually authorise that payment ourselves. So, For example, in COVID, we're all sat at home thinking, I really want a new puppy. APP fraud puppy scams were really popular. So this would be where you see an advert for a new puppy and you think, this is brilliant. And you authorize a payment for the puppy or the deposit, and you never get that money back and you never get the puppy. And it's really common in terms of purchase scams, that kind of thing. So if you see something online, you authorize a payment, and then actually the thing never turns up. It's really hard for banks to spot because you are authorizing that payment yourself. And banks must allow you to make payments. You must be able to make your own payments. You are the master of your own destiny when it comes to moving your own money around. But what if it's a scam?
So where are you buying it from? There's not going to be Amazon. What is this, like Gumtree? I mean, what?
Actually, on different marketplaces, there are quite a few fake storefronts. I actually came across one the other day. I think it was on Etsy that, to me, looked very clearly an AI shopfront. But I know that marketplaces are actually doing an incredible amount to scan their websites constantly for fake shopfronts that come up on their platforms. But it's a very, very difficult piece.
So we now need to be careful going onto these marketplaces. So Etsy, surely not Amazon. That'd be a bit more.
Amazon, I need to be careful what I say, but of course
Yeah,
Amazon as well has its problems.
Right. Okay.
But actually, it's more around Chinese companies not paying any tax.
Okay.
So it's more of a tax evasion problem.
Tax evasion. But they would be more, Amazon would probably be more savvy in spotting the technical.
Well, Etsy's very, very, very good as well, and they take them down very, very quickly.
Okay.
Facebook Marketplace has had to massively step up in terms of monitoring.
Yeah, I saw some bad stuff on there.
Yeah, they are still not perfect. So even if you're buying off a marketplace, you just need to be conscious and do your own due diligence checks on the vendors. So look, have they got any reviews? Do the reviews look fake? How many other products are they selling? How long have they been on the platform for? So all of those kind of things, you will need to do your own checks as well.
There's just value to going into a shop and just buying it from a shop and from a person you know and trust, and buying the quality and all of that.
Absolutely.
Going back to that.
Yeah.
Totally. Becoming more old-fashioned. You know that it all goes back. It
will.
Okay, so we spoke about online fraud and the link to organized crime and human trafficking. It's not always human trafficking, is it? But it can be.
It can be.
Mm-hmm. And once the money is gone, it's normally very difficult to recover it. Mm-hmm. So we've spoken about that. And emotional triggers, there is an element of using emotion to con you. Mm-hmm. So that is a real recognizable thing. So if that's also a red flag. If someone's putting pressure on you, too good to be true, anything like that, and you're finding your emotional strings being pulled, that's a red flag within itself. Can we talk a bit about AI voices, AI videos, all that? We've seen that happening now, how much more advanced AI is. Like, can we trust a phone call now from someone who we think is our loved one, someone we know and trust? And can we trust a video with this person's image or not?
So AI voice is interesting because to create a set of words or a small conversation, AI only needs a tiny, tiny segment of your voice. So if you have a podcast, for example, and you're a podcast host, there is plenty of your voice out there.
Don't give them ideas.
To train AI models.
And also, if they try to come after me, I've got you.
Exactly. There we go.
We'll get them back.
So yeah, if you've got videos online or you do any public speaking, there'll be plenty of clips for AI voice to be trained. So you do just need to be conscious of AI voice. In terms of videos, again, they're very easy to create now. It's still a bit harder than simple images, but they're very easy to create. And images, they're very easy to create. So if we're thinking about things like account takeover fraud, where someone takes over your account, perhaps they use one of your images to open up your account.
Face recognition.
Switch
your face recognition off immediately, everyone, if you're listening. And don't trust any videos and voices unless you check it with a person. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. It's very, very difficult.
Yeah.
But we still haven't got to where I think we're going to go in terms of criminal use of AI yet. There's still a lot more that's going to happen. So in the last 5 years, we've really seen criminals start to explore these different methods. In the last 2 years, we're really starting to see it ramp up. But this is now a ramp up phase in terms of different types of criminal uses of AI. On the flip side, there is some really exciting things happening in terms of using AI to stop AI-generated scams, because often a human being trying to spot an AI-generated image or video can be very difficult. Actually, I was in a room of financial crime professionals or anti-financial crime professionals, and we were looking at different images and videos side by side, and we've been trained how to spot AI versus human images, and even we were struggling to spot quite a few of them. And that's where only AI is good at spotting AI-generated images and videos. Mm-hmm. So I suppose it's not all a doom and gloom story, because there is quite a lot of financial crime prevention that's using these technologies to try and prevent scams.
Absolutely.
But we're doing a bit of a kind of catch up constantly with new methods.
Well, they want to use the AI in an evil way, and then you've got to counteract that. So you've got to develop to just be the antidote, like the opposite. But it's a tool.
It's a tool.
It can be used nicely or not nicely, I guess. What's the most convincing deep fake you've ever seen?
So at the moment, the most convincing deepfakes have still been images. So using people's images or fake images to open new accounts. In terms of videos, they're getting there, but most of the deepfakes are still just people's images being used in different ways to circumvent controls and move illicit money around.
So in terms of governments learning about this, because, governments in a way are administrators as well, mm-hmm. They put things in place, but they need the knowledge, the know-how mm-hmm. to know what to put in place. Are they talking to people like you, to your company? Mm-hmm. They are? They
are indeed. So actually before the last election, I went to, and I was part of some Labour Party policy groups. So I know that pre this election, the Labour Party was out looking and speaking to industry about this, and I'm sure other parties are doing the same. There are different industry associations that lobby the government a lot in terms of the direction of travel for scams, the importance of 40% of our crime is fraud.
40%.
So
Let's put that out there.
Exactly. So we need to do something about this. But the challenge is that the frameworks the government have set don't quite work. And that's where the lobbying is coming into play.
Yeah, I mean, that's not good enough. It's just not good enough, is it?
It's not.
40%.
No, we need more investment into policing. But we also need more in terms of regulatory frameworks to allow for data sharing across banks, payments firms. Because if you are scammed at one firm, the money's going to move to another firm. And if you're looking to get that money back, the firms all need to be speaking to each other, and very, very quickly, because the money often moves all within 10, 15 minutes. So we have some regulatory frameworks that facilitate the data sharing. But unfortunately, we've got privacy frameworks that most people are more concerned about. And when you talk to people day to day, they will tell me, I'm really concerned about my data privacy. But I'll challenge them and say, but you're also concerned about getting your money back if you were defrauded. So where do you want the balance to lie? Because if you are defrauded, you're going to call the bank and say, give me my money back. But at the same time, we can't build effective controls when everything is operating in silos.
Of course. If 40% of crime is fraud related, the loss of money here, the sheer waste of money, is like opening a tap and letting it just drip out, and 40% of all of that just is complete and utter waste. Is it not then financially sensible to put the frameworks in place and look at all this GDPR and, move things around a little bit to protect us so that we're not losing money.
Not so much for the government, because they've built the new framework with the APP fraud reimbursement. So for the voter on the ground, you or I, you will likely get your money back if it's a small-scale fraud.
Okay.
So if it's a small-scale fraud, banks, payment firms are now under reimbursement requirements where they must reimburse you. There are a couple of different points around that. There are some limits. There are some nuances, which I won't go into, but they must reimburse you. So from a government perspective, for their voters, actually for small-scale fraud, which accounts for a lot of fraud, pretty much everyone's going to get their money back and they're happy. But actually that means that the financial services market is shouldering the financial burden of fraud. So they are reimbursing you, but actually who's spending the money to then go and actually recover those funds? Some of the funds can be recovered, but where they can't be recovered, ultimately it's the financial services firms that are shouldering the burden, which for me is a challenge, because a lot of the frauds come from social media platforms. They come
I was going to ask you about that.
Yes, they come from different players. So they're almost the source or the facilitators of the fraud, and they are shouldering no responsibility.
I was going to ask you about them, and they should shoulder responsibility if the fraud is occurring on their platforms that they've not put the mechanisms in place to protect people. Why haven't they?
They haven't put it in place because they don't need to. They do make a lot of money, and they have incredible engineers that can build incredible monitoring models to take down scams. Now, if you take Facebook, for example, they do this. They do claim to take scams down, but there are so many scams that are not being taken down. If you take Instagram, for example, there are lots of investment scams, investment influencers that are claiming you can go and make millions by investing in some scam products. A lot of those are still not being taken down. And once people pay into those, that money goes into the system and it's being reimbursed by banks where they're shouldering the responsibility. There are some different policy statements that might look at bringing social media, for example, and telecommunications platforms into some form of reimbursement scope, but the operational logistics around that would be very complicated. So I think it still needs fleshing out as to how it looks like. But for me, they absolutely need to be brought into scope. Otherwise, you will not stop half of the sources of fraud scams.
I mean, the problem's big enough. It's deep enough. We've all been affected. And as far as I'm concerned, the government needs to be talking to you all the time, having you go everywhere with them and just sorting it out. And yes, we need accountability across all these different, almost like entities, wherever the fraud happens, where the fire sparks, you're accountable in that area. If you're the social media platform, it's starting there, it's growing there, it's spreading. That's the source. That's what needs to change.
Exactly. But it's almost going in the opposite direction with some of the messages coming out of the US government, because, of course, they're very, very pro-business, very pro-crypto, and loosening some of the regulatory requirements around some of those big tech firms. That's kind of the primary motivator at the moment, instead of putting in the right regulatory frameworks to protect consumers. So I think we might actually be going back in a different direction depending on the pressure that comes from the US.
I mean, I'm definitely pro-business but I do feel like there are ways of doing business and you can be sensible and do it safely and still make money. But then you're also not losing money. So they shouldn't see it as,
I mean, the same for me. I mean, I'm very, very pro supporting our financial services markets. Otherwise, I've got no job. I work closely with them day to day, and I can see that they're shouldering a big burden when actually that should be shared. And if you look at the day-to-day consumer and the people on the ground, we've got too much fraud. So we must do something about it, and we must bring them to scope.
Yeah, it's almost like we also need to... I mean, this podcast is useful. I know that people will be watching, the elderly people will be watching, all sorts, and we're educating people in a way. You've got to educate the public as to what a scam looks like. What do you check for? I mean, us on an individual level, because we're the ones falling for it. I suppose if they use our image, that's a different story. But then there are protections that we can put in place once we know that it's a danger. The face recognition, switch that off. Don't use it. There's things that we can do to protect ourselves. Take that URL, pop it into ChatGPT, or check that phone number. Who called me?
There are lots of things to protect ourselves. I think we've covered a few of them. For example, the changing of the icons on your phone. There's lots of small things, but ultimately the biggest thing is to just question everything before you make a payment. And it's a sad situation to be in, but always question. And what I have with my grandparents, my parents, my family members, if they get something that just looks off or any requests, they will screenshot it and send it to me and just put it through a bit of a filter to say, what do you think? And just taking that minute to think about why you're making the payment. Does this make sense? It probably doesn't. If it's come through urgently, then it probably doesn't. There were another really good example. My mum got a message saying, "Hi, it's your daughter Jess," because they can see, from social media who that is. "I'm in a really difficult situation, lost my phone on another person's phone. I need money now." And of course, as a mother, she thought, hang on a second, my daughter's in trouble. But she took that extra step to actually just call me on the number that she knows is my number.
Yeah.
To say, "Jess, is this you? Are you in trouble?" I said, "No, I'm not in trouble." And that's exactly what she needed to do, was to take that extra minute, question it, ask people, and then don't make any payments.
Yeah, gosh, I've had quite a lot of texts actually going, "Hi, Mum, can you call me back?
Yes.
Hi, Mum, this, that, I'm lost, I'm in trouble, I'm this, I'm that.
That's the one.
Can you help me, please?" Those I've had,
Yeah.
but it's a random number, I don't know it. Why would you be
Exactly. Just
calling
block.
me?
Exactly.
Yeah, block all the time. But then you've also got just annoying, business calls and things that you block. But my husband has this thing where he's just any number that he doesn't recognize, any number is straight to voicemail. He will never answer a number he doesn't recognize, ever. Is that a good idea?
I do exactly the same.
Do you? Okay.
And if it's a number that I need to call, they'll leave a voicemail and I'll call them
They'll
back.
leave it if it's
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And if they don't, they'll email me. If it's one of my clients calling me on my mobile and I don't have their number, they will either leave a voicemail or they'll email me and I'll call them straight back.
Yeah, sensible businesses, people will leave a voicemail. They won't just keep calling you in all these different numbers and things. Or they're trying to spam you or sell you something or pressurize you into. It's not a good look, yeah.
No.
Although sometimes, you've got to take that call. The other day I did take a number that I didn't know, and I was right to, because it was the decorator.
Oh.
He was just trying to say, I'm here now.
I'm outside your house, yeah.
So something just, I knew, I suppose in the back of I knew that I was expecting, because I'm very suspicious if I ever see a number. I don't want to be harassed.
And it's a difficult situation, but that's the way to deal with it, is to be constantly suspicious. But then, like I said a few moments ago, there are a lot of positives here as well. I don't want to scare people into just being constantly suspicious all the time, but there are lots of exciting things happening at banks, at fintechs, to try and help you process payments safely. So when, for example, on your banking app, when you're making a payment, you might now see 1,000,001 questions that say, "Do you want to make this payment? Are you sure you want to make this payment? Can you explain why you're making this payment?" And whilst that might be annoying, actually, it's designed to take you through that pausing, reflecting and thinking process before you verify any sort of large movement of funds to a new third party. So that's what it's designed to do. It might be annoying, but please do take note and think about those questions when you get them, if you're just about to move your money somewhere.
I did notice those messages coming up, actually. So, top 3 red flags for scamming, what would they be?
So for me, the top 3, the first would definitely be speed. So, and the urgency, speed or urgency. I don't know if that's 1 or 2, but the urgency, if you have got something that is coming through with urgency, not many things are that urgent. So if it's an urgent, please move the funds, it's highly likely to be a scam. The second red flag is anything around sort of the emotional manipulation. So whether or not it's, and again, it ties back to the urgency, so some form of emotional manipulation. And then the third, if it's just something that you don't recognise. So if it's a new third party or a different payment that you don't recognise and it feels off, then it probably is off.
Then it's probably off. And we've spoken about the elderly and teenagers being, particularly at risk of this. But it sounds like not only we're all at risk, corporations are at risk, we're actually all of us are at risk. So if you could leave people with one, it's difficult, but one golden rule before transferring any money online, what would that be?
It's very difficult to try and nail it down to one. I think the one would have to be question it and think and take that moment before you make the payment. It can be very difficult, for example, if you're in the middle of a 6-month romance scam, to take that minute and to take time to think and question. But ultimately do just think, just question, hang on, have I done the right due diligence checks for this? Do I know the person? Why am I doing this? And that's the thing to do.
Jessica, it's been an educational pleasure having you on. Thank you so much.
No problem. It's been a pleasure.